Yahúchanan chapter 5, verse 1. And he says, after this, there was a festival of the Yahudim, and Yahushua went up to Jerusalem. So, as I always say, right, when I say Yahudim, I am referring to those who actually believe in Yahushua. However, Yahudim are those who rejected Mashiach and they changed the name of the Father from Yahweh to Yehovah, for instance. So their names, well, just like the name of the Messiah from Yahushua to Yehoshua. The first change that was done. Also, you see that it says there was a festival of the Yehudim, doesn't say of Yahweh or Mashiach. However, well, I say this just to connect it with other things that we will see eventually in this same book of how Mashiach would speak of the Torah of the Yahudim as theirs when he referred to their interpretation, the wrong interpretation that led them to reject Mashiach. But then he would speak about his own commandments, Mashiach, which refers to the same, however, with the true interpretation, right? Through the Spirit, through love. So after this, there was a festival, a feast, a moed of the Yahudim, and Yahushua went up to Jerusalem. And in Jerusalem, at the sheep gate, there is a pool, which is called in Hebrew Beit Satah, having 5 porches. This is a very powerful story. And first, let's go and see this place in the concordance. So here is a Bethesda. And is the house of the fish, as we're about to see right here, or also Beit Chesed. So, Bethsaida was the one I was talking about. This is Bethesda. Here we have as you see here, it comes from Beit Chesed. So the actual name would mean the house of mercy, of favor. So right here we have house of mercy or flowing water. So the flowing water part would be because of the place that we're reading about. Perhaps there was flowing water through there, but as we can see, it starts with the word beit, which is house. And according to this, the other part comes from chesed, which is mercy, kindness, faithfulness, goodness. All right, so I am, yeah, so I was thinking about other place. So it only appears here. So the house of mercy, of favor. All right, so here, though, the way it appears, it seems to be talking about a different place, right? Because of the way they are transliterated the name right here by saying Beit Satah. And we will have to look, I guess, somewhere else to see what that would be. But like I said, the general idea is that is Beit Chesed, or the house of mercy. And he says in Jerusalem. So as we know, Jerusalem means the instruction of peace, or he who provides peace also. Then the sheep gate. Remember that Yahushua said in John 10, which we will read eventually, he says, I am the gate. I am the door, right? So obviously, the sheep gate will refer to Mashiach, for Mashiach is the gate through which the sheep of Yahweh will go through. Since Yahushua not only says, I am the good, the door, but also the good shepherd. So he is the shepherd that leads the sheep through the gate, he himself being the gate through the first manifestation and the second manifestation as good shepherd. So first and last, gate, and shepherd. So the sheep gate also references Mashiach. I repeat, the instruction of peace, Yerushalayim, Beit Chesed, the house of Shalom. And he says then, and in Yerushalayim, and well, just to see something here, I don't want to keep the doubt. Because of the letters used there, I would think it's talking about a Zain, Tav, Hey, perhaps. But there's no word like that, at least in the Torah. Yeah, let's leave it there. So, like I said, this is an important story, and it pretty much begins here. The way that we should understand it, because, like I said, we could read this as in the instruction of peace at the entrance of those who follow Mashiach. There is a pool which is called in Hebrew Beit Chesed, having 5 porches. So, as we know, the Torah was inspired by Yahweh. The Torah has 5 books. So these 5 porches represent those 5 books of the Torah, right? Which are Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim, right? That is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So those 5 porches represent the 5 books of the Torah, which is the instruction of Shalom, the teaching that should lead us to Shalom. That is, if we accept the Messiah, who is the sheep gate, right? So we see that this place represents the Torah. And those who would go there, those who believe in the Torah, who are looking for, in this case, would be Chesed, right? Who are looking for mercy. So I'm still wondering why it would be written this way. If anybody has another translation or whatever that appears the same, if there is a comment or whatever, I would like to see it. I'm trying to figure out where else to look for this name, since, as we know, this part is in Greek originally. So I am wondering where or what they saw or read in order to come to the conclusion that it was Beit Sata and not Beit Chesed. In this Hebrew version of the New Covenant, let's see how it appears. It's John 5:2. It says, yeah, Beit Chazda, Beit Chazda, referring to Chesed. So the house of the favor, Beit Chazda. So, like I said, it represents the Torah, which was inspired by Yahweh through Mashiach. However, those who claim to believe in it actually misinterpret it through the letter and the flesh, and end up not receiving the mercy promised within the pages of the Torah, right? So I repeat it, in Jerusalem at the sheep gate, there is a pool which is called in Hebrew Beit Chazda, having 5 porches. In these were lying a great number of those who were sick, blind, crippled, paralyzed, waiting for the stirring of the water. This is also connected to Malachi. Let's go to Malachi for a second. The whole book is very powerful. Now, if we go to, well, chapter 1, verse 6, a son esteems his father, and a servant his master. And if I am the father, where is my esteem? And if I am the master, the sovereign, where is my fear? Said Yahweh of hosts, to you priests who despise my name. But you ask, in what way have we despised your name? Right? So they themselves forgot that it was them who rejected the name, who hid the name, who prohibited the people from pronouncing the name, which shows that they despise the name. And Yahweh is telling them straight up, right? You priest who despise my name. But you asked, in what way have we despised your name? Then he says, you are presenting defiled food on my slaughter place. But you asked, in what way have we defiled you? Because you say the table of Yahweh is despicable. The table of Yahweh is despicable. And before we continue here, let me go to another part in Isaiah 65:11. So we just saw that Yahweh was complaining to the people that they would, through their actions, their belief, would make the table of Yahweh um, despicable. Let me see, 65. So look at this. But you are those who forsake Yahweh, who forget my set apart mountain, who prepare a table for God, and who fill a drink offering for many. So they rejected Yahweh to prepare a table for God. And that's what they still do nowadays, even in Christianity, because they worship God. They don't worship Yahweh. They don't worship Elohim. They worship God. And even though one may say, but God is with an O, this is with an A, remember that first of all, the pronunciation is exactly the same, God. And in Hebrew, the vowel is not there. It's just the G and the D. So it will be exactly the same. And for that, let's go to the concordance, blue letter Bible, Isaiah 65, the Strongs. So verse 11, prepare a table for that troop. Why do they translate it like that? Because God, which is the Hebrew part there, let's just show it here. Prepare a table for God, la God, for God. So you see the Gimel and the Dalet. Those two make the word or name God. And if we look in the concordance, you see God, fortune, good fortune. So
Strong's H 1409. God.
So
God.
there you go, God, right? That's who they worship instead of Yahweh. They prepare table for Yahweh, and in Malachi, Yahweh is telling them, because you say the table of Yahweh is despicable. Why? Because they prepare it for God and many. Isn't it interesting? Well, God is fortune. People worship money through the prosperity doctrine, for instance, and many other ways. And many is destiny. Isn't it interesting that people think that when they have money, like many, they can control their destiny? And isn't it interesting that in the $1 bill, it says that they trust in God? So there are many, their money, which also this vowel is not there. So money and many in Hebrew, the letters would be pretty much the same. So they prepare a table for God and who fill a drink offering for money, right? And like I said, in the money, at least in the $1 bill, they wrote that they trust in God. And right next to it, they have the eye of Horus, which happens to be another name for the eye of Lucifer, the all-seeing eye. So Lucifer is this entity that they were worshiping, God, because he's in charge of all the fortune of the world. And that's why he told Mashiach that if he were to bow down before him, he would give him all the riches and all the kingdoms of the world, because they were given to him and he could give it to anybody who he would want. So God is another name for Satan, Halel. So Yahweh is telling, but you are those who forsake Yahweh, who forget my set apart mountain, meaning the kingdom of Yahweh, who prepare a table for God instead of Yahweh, and who fill the drink offering for many instead of his kingdom. They do it for the kingdom of this reality, the material kingdom. So going back to Malachi, it says, because you say the table of Yahweh is despicable, right? When they prepare a table for God. And when you present the blind as slaughtering, is it not evil? And when you present the lame and sick, is it not evil? Bring it, bring it then to your governor. Would he be pleased with you? Would he accept you favorably? Said Yahweh of hosts. So we see both here. You present the blind as slaughtering. When you present the lame and sick, and as we were reading here, it says, in these 5 porches were lying a great number of those who were sick, blind, crippled, paralyzed, waiting for the stirring of the water. Right? So that refers to all those who were believers in the Torah, but through a wrong interpretation. So spiritually, they were all sick, blind, crippled, paralyzed. And those were the people that the priests were offering to Yahweh. So Yahweh tells them in Malachi that it is similar to offering a blind sheep as a sacrifice, right? Because if you, as a priest, as a pastor, keep your sheep blind, when you present yourself and the sheep that Yahweh allowed you to guide, uh, when you present them before the Father, if they are blind, that will be an issue because you were the one who was supposed to make them see through the actual light of the Torah, which is Mashiach, meaning teaching the true Mashiach, teaching the true doctrine would lead people to not be blind, not be crippled, because he is the way, right? So all these people that were here who were sick, they represent the fact that those who follow the Torah through the letter are accused and therefore are sick in one way or another spiritually because they're not able to cleanse themselves um, from their sins, right? Which is what Mashiach came to do as the perfect sacrifice. Because no person, um, also because of the sins of humanity, would be able to pay for anybody else's sin, being sick, blind, crippled, paralyzed, etc. So in these were lying a great number of those who were sick, blind, crippled, paralyzed, waiting for the stirring of the water. For a messenger, now this is interesting, for a messenger was going down at a certain time into the pool and was stirring the water. Whoever stepped in first, then after the stirring of the water, became well of whatever disease he had. So there was something going on there because there was an actual angel, a messenger, who would come down and do that. Now, it is possible, if we were to look at this in the positive sense, that that was the angel Raphael, right, which is the angel in charge of healing. But that is the main angel, and I'm sure there are other angels under him that have similar power or authority. So it could be any of them, and perhaps most likely, if it wasn't Raphael, right, the other, well, the possibility is that that angel was seeking steam, right? He was seeking worship. By doing that, he was uh, hoping for the people who would get healed, for them to revere, right, honor that angel that would have healed them. So that also connects with the fact that, remember, we read in Galatians that even though Yahweh is one and Moshe is one, Moshe received the Torah through Malachim in plural. So minimum 2 angels gave Moshe the Torah. And in that minimum, one would be Hillel and the other one would be Michael. Hillel as an accuser using the law, and Michael as he who defends Israel using the law, as we see in Daniel 12:1, that Michael is the one who is in charge of defending Israel. And as we know, Hillel is the accuser. And it is because of the interpretation of Hillel that the many Yehudim rejected Mashiach and were like this people, sick, blind, crippled, paralyzed, etc. So in this part, for a messenger was going down at a certain time into the pool. So the fact that there was a pool is also interesting because we know that Yahushua is the water, but living water. So it flows. The water of Mashiach is always moving. In this case, the water was stuck in a pool, and then an angel would come and move the water, and when the water was moving, then there would be healing. So that is like in a way like those churches where they promise like Sundays of healings, right? Miracles and all of that, and they gather a bunch of people, and many times some people believe they are healed, but hours later or the day later, they realize it was just their emotion, adrenaline that make them feel better, well. But in some cases, because of the great faith that some people have, even in the wrong doctrine, some are healed, right? But perhaps one every uh, who knows how much time, right? So that is why there are healings, even in doctrines that don't accept the scripture or the Torah, because of the faith, because Yahweh gave us that as a gift to every human being, that if you believe, you receive, that you can manifest, because He is a creator and we were created in His image and likeness. So anybody, if he or she believes completely without doubt, will receive whatever she or he is believing. So that is why sometimes people receive miracles or are healed all of a sudden, even though they may not believe in the Messiah, or even though they may be believing in an idol, right? Because it does happen, for instance, um, in general, really. So we see it here. For a messenger, an angel, so sometimes angels do things like that, um, either because Yahweh, I repeat, made that universal law that if you believe, you receive, but also some angels who are with Lucifer, Hillel, they do things in order to receive the worship for themselves, right? So that is why, for instance, in Catholicism, which sometimes they claim there are miracles, they use those supposed miracles to turn popes into saints or stuff like that. People who have died already, they make them saints because they claim that they prayed to that person and they received the miracle. But it was their faith, not that person, not that um, person who died or whatever. So I repeat, for a messenger was going down at a certain time into the pool and was stirring the water. Whoever stepped in first, then after the stirring of the water, became well of whatever disease he had. So, like I said, it's like in Christianity, right? Many times they say, if you want to be healed, come here to the front of the uh pulpit, right? Why can't the person be healed wherever he may be, right? In the corner of the church or whatever. Like, it's like, no, you have to come here. You got to be part of the show. So um that really doesn't make sense, but we see it that it was happening back then also. Verse 5. And a certain man was there who had a sickness 38 years. 38 years. So the 38, as we know, is formed by the lamed and the het, right? And this word right here is, well, let me do it in the blue letter. So leach says vigor, freshness, moisture. He was trying to get some moisture getting into the pool. But uh look at this. Lach. Well, I'm looking for another one also. Fresh, new, right? That's why it's part of moist, vigor, freshness. So he had been 38 years in that way, but like I said, I was looking for another word. Let me see if we find it here. It's gonna take a while. Remember that the letter Vav sometimes can be taken out of the word and the pronunciation remains. There are four letters that have that, which are the four letters in the name Yonah, in the name of the prophet Yonah. The Yud, the Vav, the Nun, and the Hey. So in this case, the Lamed Het could be taken as Luach, right? And Luach, well, is a term that is used also for the calendar, for instance. So it's interesting that time, like it says here, that at a certain time the angel would come down. But also you see tablet of stone, the luchot, the tablets of the Ten Commandments are luchot. You see, um, here in Exodus 24:12, and Yahweh said unto Moshe, come up to me into the mountain and be there, and I will give thee tablets, luchot of stone, luchot. But one lamed chet would be one tablet, right? So there are a couple things that we could say here with the fact that he was 38 years old. One, that he had fulfilled half of the commandments, right? Remember that the two tablets represent the spiritual commandments and the physical commandments. Let me see something else. So the numerical value 38 is the same of these words that we have here. For instance, Tobiyahu, Yahweh is good. So we are about to see the goodness of Yahweh in action. Um, the will of Elohim, right? We're about to see the will of Elohim manifesting as well, to study or learn, which is interesting because, like I said, that place represented the Torah, and he had been there 38 years. So in a way, it's like he was one who studied Torah, but still he was sick. So I was saying, and a certain man was there who had a sickness 38 years. Obviously, it shows his amazing faith because he had been sick for 38 years and he kept going to the same place without being able to get to the water in order to be healed. So he had faith in the Torah. He had faith that Yahweh has the power, but the miracle had not been manifested for him. Um, Also, since well, one of the interpretations, because remember that John wrote his book in the level of Sod, which is the highest level of interpretation or the most profound. So, like I would say, in the literal sense, is referring to things that happen historically with Mashiach in Israel when he manifested the first time. But in the spiritual sense, it refers to the coming of the last, the second manifestation. So, in a way, um, we could either see Yahushua as the last and this man as Eliyahu, or we could see Yahushua as himself helping the last to be able to walk through the true way, which is Mashiach, Yahushua, who said, I am the way. So, in that sense, remember that, like I said, one of the, well, each of the tablets represented the spiritual commandments, the first four commandments, and the physical or earthly commandments, the last six commandments, 4 and 6, like the 4 letters of the name Yahweh and the 6 letters of the name Yahushua with 2 vavs. Like the fact that Yahushua came to close the fourth millennium and the last comes at the end of the sixth millennium. So 4, 6. So the fact that he was 38 years old, it is like saying that he was one of the luchot, one of the tablets, a luach, right? I hope that's been understood. And in fact, the vav that we are taking out or that we are not mentioning, that vav has the numerical value of 6, which you would refer to the tablet with the 6 commandments, meaning the second tablet, the earthly tablet, which connects with the coming of the last. So, and a certain man was there who had a sickness 38 years. When Yahushua saw him lying there and knowing that he already had been a long time, he said to him, do you wish to become well? Like I always say, I find this a bit funny because in today's society, I wonder what that person would have said to that question because it is, in a way, an obvious question. There's a reason why he's there and he is sick. Anybody who is sick would like to be better. We would think, right? Some may not because they get attention or others want to just die. But in general, right, people want to get better. And if a person goes to a place where miracles happen, it makes sense that he wants a miracle for himself. So we could say that that is an obvious question from Mashiach. However, we see here the character of Yahweh and therefore his son, that he respects our free will. He asks, he doesn't just go and acts. He asks first, right? Like a gentleman. So when Yahushua saw him lying there and knowing that he already had been a long time, he said to him, "Do you wish to become well?" The sick man answered him, "Sovereign, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred, but while I am coming, another steps down before me." So with this answer, he's pretty much saying, "Yeah, but I haven't been able because I'm not able to make it there in time." So he doesn't know yet who he's talking with. So the sick man answered him, "Sovereign, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred, but while I am coming, another steps down before me." So in a way, it's like saying, "Yes, I want to. I'm not able to make it, but perhaps you can help me get there because by myself, I haven't been able." Yahushua said to him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." So we see that Yahushua doesn't need anything else, right? But his word, for he is the word of Yahweh. Like I said, because of the answer of the man, perhaps the man wanted Yahushua to help him. So he wanted Yahushua to walk for him, to carry him to the pool. But Yahushua is saying, "No, you walk. You walk yourself. I'm not going to carry you." Right? Which in a way is a lesson for everybody because many times we come to the Father, to the Creator, and we want everything to just happen automatically, to be done for us. We want everything to just be perfect. However, Yahushua, like I always say, he said, "I am the way." He didn't say, "I am the destiny." He is the way to the Father. So we need to walk. We shouldn't just sit down and wait to be taken, right? So Yahushua is clear and he says, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." Right? So obviously he's healing him, but now for him to walk in the way of the Father, not according to the false doctrines represented by that place, that pool with five porches, but through Mashiach, the true, through Mashiach, who is the true um, gate of the sheep. So Yahushua said to him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." So it's not only interesting that Yahushua just heals him right away, he sees that from all the people there, which is also important because many people believe that if Mashiach woman, like, I mean, because of movies and the foolish heart, people believe that if Mashiach will manifest, he will be healing everybody. But we see there that there were, it says, um, a great number who were sick, a great number of people, but Yahushua only healed a certain man, right? So from all the people that were there and that had a certain faith because they thought they could be healed if they touched the water, none of them received healing through Mashiach. So their faith was not put in the right place. They were not, in a way, worthy of receiving that miracle. In a way, I repeat, because obviously we were not worthy, but he paid for our sins. However, my point is that he chose one person from all who were there. So it says, Yahushua said to him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." I would like to see in the Hebrew, which, well, I'll check it out right here right now, even though this is may not be the original, but it's very close to what it would have been. So John 5:8 says, cum. Remember that cum is a verb that Joseph used when he received the dreams that he received that he told his brothers for which they hated him. he used the verb kum, which means to rise. So it is understood that every time that that verb appears in scriptures refers to the manifestation of the last who is a descendant of Joseph. So I find interesting that Yahushua is telling him kum. And now there are like a couple more verbs that he could have used. Um, and one of those, it also connects with the last, but because of another reason. But either way, I just wanted to check one what verb was being used there, according at least to this version. So, kum, take up your bed and walk. Also, as we're about to see, Yahushua did this on purpose. Obviously, he's trying to heal him, but what he said to him, take up your bed and walk. Because as we see here, it was a Shabbat. And according to those of the letter, that would be a sin to carry your bed on that day. Right? So remember that all who were there were people who represent those who follow the Torah, but because of the wrong interpretation are sick, paralyzed, crippled, blind, etc. So this guy was healed, and he was told by Mashiach himself, who healed him, take up your bed and walk. If taking your bed was a sin, obviously Yahushua would not have said that at all. Perhaps he would have just said, just walk, come tomorrow for your bed. Right? So it says here, and immediately the man became well, and he took up his bed and was walking. So when he heard the word, he became well. So he realized that he was able to get up and walk. So he obeyed. He picked up his bed and started walking. Now it was a Shabbat on that day. So that is why Yahweh writes it right here. Now it was a Shabbat on that day, right? So, like saying, according to the belief of the people of the time, which happens to be the same belief of nowadays for those who are Jewish or um, are Messianic Jews, we see here that Yahushua told this man to do something that, according to the world and the world of believers, not only the world in general, it was a sin. Now it was Shabbat on that day. The Yehudim therefore said to him who had been healed, it is the Shabbat. It is not right for you to take up the bed. So instead of uh, being amazed for this man being healed, instead of worshiping Yahweh, praising Yahweh for the miracle, they start complaining and they start to accuse him of sin. So we see here that Yahushua is defending as a lawyer, given freedom from sin, yet the Pharisees, the Yehudim, who ended up not accepting Mashiach, they were acting as the accuser himself. They were acting as Lucifer, as Halel, Satan, by accusing this man of sin, even though he's doing something that is no sin, but it is according to their minds, according to the commandments of men. So the Yehudim therefore said to him who had been healed, it is the Shabbat, it is not right for you to take up the bed. He answered them, he who made me well said to me, take up your bed and walk. I love that answer because it is just very clear, straight to the point, and in a way, I'm pretty sure they would see it as a disrespect, even though there's no disrespect in any word said here. He's telling them, well, the person who healed me, he told me to do it. So if he has the power to heal me, I'm sure he is right about me taking the bed and going. I don't see why I should listen to you guys if you never healed me. Why should I just say, oh, I should listen to them all of a sudden? Right? Makes no sense. So he realized that the teachers of the moment, the priests of the moment, the Pharisees and them were wrong about what they were teaching because they were never able to heal and all they did was accuse. However, a man who just appeared out of nowhere healed him and told him, take up your bed and walk. So if the power of healing comes from the Most High, it would be the Most High as well telling him, take up your bed and walk. And obviously, the Most High is not going to tell anybody to sin. So the Most High was showing that that is no sin, right? He answered them, he who made me well said to him, take up your bed and walk. Therefore, they asked him, who is the man who said to you, take up your bed and walk? Interesting the question, who is the man? Because remember that who in Hebrew is pronounced me. Me. And me, the mem yud, represents Yahushua the Messiah. Because Yahushua is who re, uh, reveals who is the Father. So the word who refers to the first manifestation, while the word what refers to the second manifestation, the who and the what. The who reveals who the Father is, the what reveals what Yahushua said. So me and ma, those two words represent the coming of the first and the last. And that comes from a revelation of Proverbs 30, verse 4, just in case. We can see that at some point eventually. So who is the man? In a way, in the answer is in the question. Because if who represents Yahushua, then who is the man would be like saying Yahushua is the man. Yet they are blind in order to see that, of course. Who is the man who said to you, take up your bed and walk? So instead of them saying, what, you were healed? Oh, praise Yahweh. Tell us all about it. Let's go to the temple. No, they now are wondering who is the man who told him he could do that so that they can accuse him also, right? So instead of saying, how is it that you were healed? Tell us all about it. They are asking for more information regarding this person who told him to pick up the bed because he's telling people to sin, pretty much in their mind, right? So we see that it is the same attitude of nowadays, even 2,000 years. Therefore, they asked him, who is the man who said to you, take up your bed and walk? But the one who was healed did not know who it was, right? Which shows, in a way, in one of the interpretations I am mentioning, how in the end times, the name of Mashiach would be hidden. But the one who was healed did not know who it was, right? In the sense of what happened there. Like I said, Yahushua appeared out of nowhere. The man never asked his name. He just received healing, and then Yahushua kept on going. So it says, but the one who was healed did not know who it was, for Yahushua had moved away, a crowd being in that place. Afterward, Yahushua found him in the set apart place. So the man went to the temple, right? The set apart place. Yahushua was walking around and found him over there. Afterward, Yahushua found him in the set apart place and said to him, see, you have been made well. Sin no more, so that no worse matters befalls you. So that no worse matter befalls you. So this shows that in this case, his sickness came because of a sin, which is the most common uh, thing, right? Um, anything in the physical has an origin or a root in the spiritual. And I say that in this moment because there is another part in John 9 when Yahushua heals somebody who never sinned himself nor his parents, but he was born blind so that the power of Yahweh would manifest in him. And that was the exception. Now, this is the rule, right? The fact that because of his sin, he had the sickness. I I am pretty sure that he had repented, and that is why Yahushua goes to him and heals him, right? Perhaps the rest of the people over there had not repented truly, or their sin continued. But in his case, Yahushua healed him and then tells him, remember not to sin again, right? But it is also important that he's saying this because Yahushua was the one who told him, pick up your bed and walk. Now Yahushua finds him and says, do not sin again. So picking up the bed and walking was not a sin because Yahushua would not have told him to do it if it was a sin, because he would contradict himself by now saying, don't sin, right? So it is talking about true sin. So afterward, Yahushua found him in the set apart place and said to him, "See, you have been made well. Sin no more, so that no worse matter befalls you." So just like it also teaches, well, the scripture teaches how when a person is possessed, if the demon comes out, if the person does not fill himself with the spirit of Yahweh, then that spirit will come back with seven that are worse than the first, and the situation will become a lot worse than it was before. So the same with sickness, right? So, verse 15, the man went away and told the Yahudim that it was Yahushua who made him well, right? So he, most likely being naive, a bit innocent, is like, oh, so now I met him. Now I know who it is. They were asking about it. I will go and tell them because perhaps they will realize that he's the Messiah. Perhaps they will accept him. Perhaps they will ask for a miracle, right? He's not thinking the way the Pharisees are thinking of accusation and healing Messiah. So the man went away and told the Yehudim that it was Yahushua who made him well. And because of this, the Yehudim persecuted Yahushua. So imagine how amazing and how twisted their minds and hearts were and still are in many cases, that instead of going and asking Yahushua how he did it, why he told the guy to pick up the bed if they thought that was a sin. No, they believe that they are right completely because of their ego, and they just decide to start persecuting Yahushua for daring to tell somebody to carry a bed on a Shabbat without even thinking about the fact that he was able to heal him from a sickness that lasted 38 years, right? That to them didn't mean anything. So I would say because of that 38, and like I said, that will represent the second tablet of the 10 commandments, that it was one of those sins that he committed, reason why he was having that issue, but also um, in a way showing how they, the Yehudim, had no understanding at all regarding the commandments given in the tab. So, and because of this, the Yehudim persecuted Yahushua and were seeking to kill him because he was doing these healings on the Shabbat. This is one of the most amazing things ever, that the Pharisees thought that healing somebody on the Shabbat was a sin because they saw healing as working, as work. And it makes no sense. Remember Yahushua? Well, I was about to say it. But Yahushua answered them, "My Father works until now, and I work." This is an amazing verse as well, but let me just first explain the first part. And because of this, the Yehudim persecuted Yahushua and were seeking to kill him because he was doing these healings on the Shabbat. So to them, healing on a Shabbat was a sin. That makes no sense at all. Like I always say, if that was a sin, then I mean, it would also be a sin to read on Shabbat. It would be a sin to study on Shabbat. That is work. It would be a sin for me to teach on Shabbat because it is work. So they have no idea of what the work that is referred to in the commandments regarding the Shabbat uh, is. Because remember that sinning is working for the enemy because sin enslaves. So when a person sins, that person is working for the enemy, is working for the flesh. That is what we must not do on Shabbat. And therefore, we shouldn't do it ever. No day of the week um, should be a day for sinning, which is work for the enemy. Also, the fact that it says here, but Yahushua answered them, "My Father works until now, and I work." This is amazing for several reasons. My Father works. So, in a way, it's like saying, It is your father, the father of the Pharisees, the one who has to rest. He is the one that needs rest because he gets tired. He is not truly the eternal, right? Yeah. So remember that in in Genesis we see that it says first Elohim. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth, and then Yahweh adds his name, Yahweh Elohim. And there are many things that um, are revealed through those two titles, like we saw in the first chapter of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. So Elohim is a plural word. So it refers to the Father and the Son and the Ruach between them. So Elohim refers to the Father and the Ruach, to the Father and the Son together. But Elohim is also a title that refers to angels. So Yahweh created the angels and then created everything under them using the angels, through the angels. And that is why some angels believe earth is theirs, or that humans should worship them, or that they are more important than, etc. So I say all of that because everything that happened needed to happen in order for us to have an idea of what was going to happen in the future. Meaning, Yahweh gave us shadows through the Torah to show us what would happen in the end, right? He made a model of the Mishkan, which is what Moshe did, and then in the temple of Shlomo. But all of that was just a representation of Yahushua as the Messiah, the body in which Yahweh would enter, right? And then the congregation. So everything that was in the beginning was a shadow of things to come, as Paul says. So when the scripture says that Elohim rested on the seventh day, obviously Yahweh needs no rest. When it comes to Yahweh, he created rest on the seventh for men who would need it. But the fact that it says that Elohim rested, also in a way, when it comes to Yahweh, we can see it as he just stopped creating, right? But the term rest, which is the fact, which is what is pretty much being referred to here in this chapter, because they thought that that guy was sinning for not resting literally on the Shabbat, because Elohim said to rest because he rested, then that Elohim would not be Yahweh, would be a lower entity, that being an angel. And that angel needed rest, no doubt. And that is why those who worship him follow the Shabbat according to his interpretation, that of the flesh, that of resting the flesh. And that is why Shabbat ended up being called Saturday, the day of Saturn. Saturn is the god of time, is the first angel that was created because he was created with time itself. And that is another name for Samael, who became the father of Halel, Lucifer. The first angel that was created, Ariel, who became then Samael when he fell. And he was known and worshipped as Kronos by um, the Romans. Well, by Saturn, as Saturn by the Romans, and Kronos by the Greeks, right? So that's why Saturday, the day of Saturn, the Shabbat. Saturn is the one that they worship. Saturn is worshipped through a cube, like the cube that the Jews put on their foreheads. He is worshipped through the color black, like the black that they use in most of their clothing. They cover themselves with black and put a cube on their heads to represent Saturn. Most of them don't realize it. A few do and still do it. um, but yeah, so the cube is a representation of the worship of Saturn. In a way, Yahushua came to break the cube or open up the cube. The cube also represents this reality. And Yahushua came to become the door out of the cube, out of this reality of time, to give us an entrance into the reality of the Father, which is eternity, eternal life. That is why Um, an open cube forms a cross. You see right here? Yahushua died on the cross to open the cube, to open the reality controlled by Saturn, Kronos, the cube. And I will put the wrong name here just so that you guys see it. There's well, you see here. So the cube becomes a cross. And I was looking for another image actually, but it don't matter. So was that understood? All right. So by Yahushua saying, "My father works until now, and I work," he's saying your father, he may have to rest every seventh day, every Saturday. But my father, he's still working. He doesn't stop, because if he stopped, all reality would stop existing. Right? Yahweh needs to decide for reality to continue to exist at every single moment, for everything to continue to exist. It has to be his will, because if not, everything would disappear instantly. So he still works. And in the millennium, he may give us authority to do the things so that he can rest, right? But he still works, because to Yahweh, one day is like 1,000 years. So when Elohim rested on the seventh day, was to show that the Father Creator Almighty Yahweh would work through the 6 millenniums, and the seventh millennium would become a millennium of shalom, for us to rest from sin, to rest from evil. So by Yahushua saying, "My father works until now," is because it was just the fourth day. It was not a Shabbat. It was the fourth day. So he's saying, "My father's still working. I don't know why you guys think he shouldn't." Right? So one is the true Shabbat of the Father, which is the seventh millennium, which was represented by the seventh day of the week. And that's why in Romans 14, Paul explains how some who have a weak faith only see the seventh day as the Shabbat. But those who have a strong faith, they realize that all days are the same, because we are waiting for the true Shabbat, which is the millennium. And the entrance to the Shabbat is Yahushua, because he is the one who forgives our sins so that we can rest. Is that understood? That's why the lamb was sacrificed when people went out of slavery in Egypt, because the sacrifice of Yahushua, the lamb, frees us from slavery to sin, gives us rest. So, and because of this, the Yehudim persecuted Yahushua and were seeking to kill him, because he was doing these healings on the Shabbat. But Yahushua answered them, "My father works until now, and I work." My father works until now, and I work. Also, another thing about Saturn, because I only mentioned, well, I actually had an image, but let me see if they just appeared this way. Um, okay, look at this. For instance, you can see how the cube is within the star they call the Star of David, which obviously the Jews used. Um, but yeah, I was looking for others. You see, here's the cube I was mentioning, put on their foreheads to worship Saturn. Um, this is the uh talisman of Saturn. One side has the six-pointed star, and the other one has the five-pointed star. Both are wicked. Both are used for witchcraft. The six-pointed star is called a hexagram. That's why when people curse others, they call it a hex, being hexed, because they used a hexagram to curse. And in the middle, you can see the golden calf. This talisman of Saturn was brought from Egypt. And that is why, after they didn't know what happened to Moshe, they made a golden calf to start worshiping it. And that is why Yahweh says that they made for themselves a star, the star of Moloch and Kium, as we see in the book of Amos 5:26. It says, "But you took up," well, this is a different translation. "Took up Sikut, your sovereign." Other translations have there, "took the Sukkot," or the tabernacle of Moloch, because Moloch comes from Melech, and Melech is king. So they translated Moloch as sovereign, and tabernacle, they put it as the name of the false god, Sikut. So it has to do with translation, but either way. Kiyum is Saturn. So even though it's a different translation, we still have Kiyum, which is Saturn. Your idols, your astral mighty ones. Oh, let's see what it says here. Well, Acts 7:43 is quoted. This part says, "The star of your Elohim, the star of your Elohim, which you made for yourselves." And that is the star. So you can see the worship of Saturn in many ways. Also, Muslims worship it. Okay, so let's leave it there. So going back, verse 18. Because of this, then the Yehudim were seeking all the more to kill him. Listen to this. Because not only was he breaking the Shabbat, but he also called Elohim his own father, making himself equal with Elohim. There are a couple things here. First, see how it is written. He breaking the Shabbat. Because not only was he breaking the Shabbat, so it was written like that to show that according to men, according to the commandments of men, doctrines of demons, according to the wrong interpretation of the Torah, he was breaking the Shabbat. Right? So that is very important. So according to the world, he was a sinner. According to Yahweh, he wasn't. That's why he raised him from the dead. Right? So that is very important. According to the world, he was a sinner. That's why it says, because not only was he breaking the Shabbat, and once again, I find it amazing that they did not care about the healing. They did not care about the miracle. And I'm sure most of it was because of their envy. So, because of this, the Yehudim were seeking all the more to kill him, because not only was he breaking the Shabbat, so to them that was enough. Something that wasn't even a sin, but to them it was because of the wrong interpretation. But he also called Elohim his own father, making himself equal with Elohim. So this is hypocritical because they themselves believe to be children of Elohim. So why all of a sudden becomes a sin when he says it, right? And as we know, he is the only begotten son of Yahweh, and we become children through him by believing in his name, as we see in John 1:11. But he also called Elohim his own father, making himself equal with Elohim. Therefore, Yahushua responded and said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, the Son is able to do none at all by himself, but only that which he sees the Father doing, because whatever he does, the Son also likewise does." Right? So even though they're trying to kill him now because he claimed to be the Son, he continues in that line telling them why he is the Son, and even how that doesn't mean exactly what they are saying, or at least that Yahushua himself, who is the Son, is not seeing it like they see it, because they see it all, everything in the wrong way, in the wrong light, for they are blind. And I mean that here it says, "Therefore Yahushua responded and said to them, Truly, truly, I say to you, the Son is able to do none at all by himself." So he's saying, like, I'm not giving any honor to myself. It's all the honor for the Father, because I wouldn't be able to do anything unless he gives me the power. So he's not like claiming to be exactly the same. He's saying everything that I am and do is because of him, which is the case, and it shows how humble Yahushua is. Reason why he pretty much is who he is, right? "Truly, truly, I say to you, the Son is able to do none at all by himself." So Yahushua is not he's just being real. He's the truth, right? He's just saying, I am the Son, but I wouldn't be able to do anything unless I had the Father with me, like a child who needs his father for everything. Like the fact that our genes come from our parents. So, truly, truly, I say to you, the Son is able to do none at all by himself, but only that which he sees the Father doing, right? The Son learns from the Father. So he's saying, I learned from my Father that I should heal, but you are learning from your Father that you should accuse. So whose father is who, right? Like that shows that the father of Yahushua is Yahweh and the father of the Pharisees was and is Satan. But only that which he sees the Father doing, because whatever he does, the Son also likewise does. So it depends on the actions of the person, who that person actually worships. No matter what that person may say, his actions will show, right? And that is important to understand. By their fruits you shall know them. So it says, verse 20, for the Father loves the Son. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all that he himself does. And greater works than these he is going to show him, in order that you marvel. That is wonderful, beautiful, and may that be fulfilled also through us. In greater works than these he is going to show him, right? Like the miracles that come next, like the fact that he would be raised from the dead, that would be the greatest of all, of course. That he will go to the Father, to the right hand of the Father, and then the fact that the 144,000 will do greater things that he did because he is with the Father as he promised. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all that he himself does, and greater works than these he is going to show him, in order that you marvel. Verse 21. For as the Father raises the dead, you see, confirming that that was the greatest miracle that was going to happen in that time. For as the Father raises the dead and makes alive, even so the Son makes alive whom he wishes. Right? So he's telling them straight up, I can not only give healing to a sick person, but I can give life to a dead person. So imagine what that was for the Pharisees to hear when they wanted to kill him, because to them he was a sinner. And now he, the supposed sinner, is saying that he can give life. For as the Father raises the dead and makes alive, even so the Son makes alive whom he wishes. For the Father judges no one. This is huge. For the Father judges no one, but has given all the judgment to the Son. It's huge for several reasons, because even though this is said here, then we see somewhere else that Yahweh is the judge. The point is that he doesn't judge directly. He judges through the ones that he sent, being that Eliyahu, the Messiah, and the witness like Moshe. So Yahushua is the lawyer. Eliyahu and the witness like Moshe are the two witnesses. So with the lawyer and the two witnesses, Yahweh judges, because now there is a defense and a testimony other than the accusation, right? So now Yahweh, and we could even add the apostles as the juror, right? So Yahweh will judge according to everything else. He doesn't judge directly. That's why he sent a lawyer, witnesses, and a juror. So for the Father judges no one. Also, remember that Yahushua came as the Son, the last comes as the Father. So in that sense, the last comes to testify, and through that testimony, judgment comes. But the judgment is not directly the same way as I was just saying with the Father. In another way of seeing it, through Yahushua being the first and being the lawyer, and the last being the witness, through the defense and testimony, we have judgment. The judge, one first and last become one. So for the Father judges no one, but has given all the judgment to the Son. Yahushua himself in another time says that he judges no one, right? So people will see those things as contradictions for not understanding the context or the way in which it can be interpreted when it comes to the Father, the first and the last, and even adding Eliyahu. So Yahushua says that he judges no one. Why? Because he came to defend him as only the first. He came to defend, to be the lawyer, right? And he says, you have someone to judge you, Moshe, right? That's why the witness, like Moshe, will give testimony, and that testimony will bring judgment. So another way of saying it, Yahushua is saying, I don't need to judge anybody because you already have the law, the Torah, which is judging you and is condemning you, by the way, right? Because the scripture itself says that whoever doesn't fulfill all the commandments of the Torah is cursed, right? So if you depend on the works of the Torah, then you are under a curse. So I repeat, for the Father judges no one, but has given all the judgment to the Son. He gave all authority to the Son, and he did this so that people honor the Son, so that people respect the Son. So Yahweh said, I have all the authority to do it, but I'm going to give this authority, this work, this job to you, the Son, so that everybody will respect you, because if I am the one who judges, they won't respect you, only me, right? So Yahweh is doing it so that people respect and love the Son. For the Father judges no one, but has given all the judgment to the Son, that all should value the Son even as they value the Father. There you go. That all should honor the Son even as they honor the Father. So that is why Yahushua received judgment, meaning the authority to judge, from the Father, so that people not only seek the Father or worship or honor the Father in a way like it happens in Islam. In Islam, Allah tells them that he has no children, that he has no sons, even though in the past he had three daughters. He just doesn't recognize them anymore. There are three daughters of Allah, Allah as the moon god back in the day, but then they changed it and they took away the three daughters. And now in the Quran, he says that he doesn't have any children. So to them, they see Allah as the mighty one, right? And they believe that the mighty one has no children. So to them, Yahushua is just a prophet, not a son. That is obviously an issue and a doctrine of the spirit of error. But I say that because we see there in that doctrine that because of that, the fact that he says that he doesn't have children, that he doesn't have a son, makes Muslims not respect Mashiach as they should. And they think that they only have to respect and honor and obey Allah, right? So that all should value, and it makes no sense because they claim that the Torah, the prophets, and even the new covenant was inspired, but they claim that it was all changed, so it cannot be trusted. So it is like saying that it is not inspired. And why can Allah protect the Quran for it not to be changed, but he couldn't protect the Torah and the prophets and the new covenant? That makes no sense, really. And if they claim that the old covenant is true, we see in the old covenant that the Almighty himself says that he has a son. He says it several times. One of them, Proverbs 30, verse 4. What is his name and the name of his son, if you know it? So that all should value, honor the Son, even as they honor the Father. He who does not value the Son does not value the Father who sent him. He who does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. So if you don't honor Yahushua as the Messiah and Son of the Almighty, then the mighty one you're worshiping is not the true one. That is pretty much what we find here. If a person doesn't accept Yahushua as the anointed one and Son of the Almighty Creator, then that person is worshiping a different mighty one. He's worshiping a false mighty one. I hope that's understood and clear. And imagine that, for instance, in Christianity, they don't honor Yahushua, they honor Jesus. And they have an image for him and everything, which doesn't look at all like Yahushua. So the image and the name is completely of a different man. So even though they claim to honor the Messiah, they honor a different one as Messiah. In Islam, they don't honor the Messiah Yahushua because they claim that he's not the son. And they also call him differently, Isa. Jewish people claim that the Messiah has not come. And because of what Yahushua did, they don't even see the Messiah as the son of Yahweh anymore. So these three religions are worshiping a different mighty one that is not Yahweh. And they are the main ones that claim to come from Abraham. So if they don't honor Yahushua, the true son, they don't honor the true father, creator, Yahweh. So in Christianity, they honor another one, Jesus. That is pretty much going towards Azazel. In Catholicism, they worship Mary. So that is going to Asherah, Astarte. In Judaism, they don't worship Yahweh. They don't accept the Messiah. So they follow mainly Hillel, but depending on the doctrine, as we just saw, also Samael through Chronos. And Islam, again, depending mostly on the doctrine, but Hillel is mainly worshipped by them. Remember that Allah in Hebrew, there are two words that are pronounced Allah in Hebrew. One of them is he ascended, but another one, it is a type of curse. So Allah is a curse. They are worshiping a cursed one, a cursed entity. They are worshiping the moon god. That's why the symbol of Islam is the moon with Venus. The moon is Samael. Venus is one star that most people use to represent Hillel. And that is pretty much the talisman of Saturn that we just saw. The five-pointed star represents Venus. The six-pointed star represents Saturn. And Samael was also worshipped through the moon, I repeat, and Hillel through the sun. That's why they also worship the sun in Catholicism. So anyways, I'll continue. That all should value or honor the Son even as they honor the Father. He who does not honor the Son does not honor the Father who sent him. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who hears my word and believes in him who sent me possesses everlasting life and does not come into judgment, but has passed from death into life. So, very powerful what he's saying. I would love to see the Pharisees when he said this. I repeat, truly, truly, I say to you, he who hears my word. So see that it's singular. So obviously, in general, refers to everything that he says. Of course, he is the word of Yahweh. But also remember that the word of Yahweh is the name of the Son, is the name of the Messiah. That's why we see in Revelation 19:13, his name is the word of Yahweh. So Yahushua is the word. And Yahushua is saying, he who hears my word and believes in him who sent me. So he who has the name and believes in the Father, right? In the Almighty Creator as Father of Yahushua, the Word. So he who hears my word, remember that faith comes through hearing, and hearing the word of Yahweh. So he who hears my word and believes, and has faith in him who sent me possesses everlasting life. Remember that in the book of Revelation, the last chapter, Yahushua says that he's sending his messenger. I am sending my messenger to give testimony to the congregations. So Yahweh sent Yahushua. So Yahushua is saying, he who believes in him who sent me, meaning the Father. Now, when the last comes, he comes being sent by Yahushua. So he who believes in he who sent the last will receive also everlasting life, because Yahushua the first is the life. I say to you, he who hears my word and believes in him who sent me possesses everlasting life and does not come into judgment. That's why he was saying that the Father judges no one. For the Father judges no one. Why? Because he who believes in him who sent the Son, that being the Father, does not come into judgment, but has passed from death into life. So we were we were dead in our sins. So that's why it says has passed from death to life. So people, even though they may be born and live for a long time in this reality, if they don't accept Yahushua, they are dead. And once they believe in the Father who sent the Messiah, they pass from death to life. Truly, truly, I say to you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of Elohim, and those having heard shall live. This is powerful again, as always, as everything. Because remember that, like I said, Yahushua is the word, the last is the voice. That's why the first is the sword and the last is the bow, which throws arrows, like the voice throws words. So truly, truly, I say to you, the hour is coming and now is when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of Elohim. So the literal interpretation refers to the fact that Yahushua was going to be killed. So he would go to Sheol, where the souls of the dead are, and he would talk to them, and the dead would hear his voice in order for them to be resurrected eventually or taken to paradise within Sheol. But in the spiritual sense, is referring to the end of time when the voice of Yahweh would manifest, sent by the Son, who is the Word, and he would speak to the people of the world who are dead in their sins because of the apostasy of the past 2,000 years. That's why he comes as a thief in the night, because right now we are in the spiritual night of history. I say to you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of Yahweh, and those having heard shall live. Faith comes through hearing, and hearing the word of Yahweh. And those having heard shall live, because Abraham believed, and his faith was accounted for justice, righteousness, because he heard and believed, he will live. So the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of Elohim, and those having heard shall live. For as the Father possesses life in himself, so he gave also to the Son to possess life in himself. I repeat that. And you see how this verse 26, numerical value of Yahweh, Yud Hey Vav Hey. For as the Father possesses life in himself, Yud Hey, the Father, the Yud, and himself, the Hey, so he gave also the Son, Vav, to possess life in himself, last Hey. So in a way, we see the name here, Yud Hey Vav Hey. For as the Father possessed, because remember that the Yud is a hen that possesses life, that possesses life. For as the Father possesses life in himself, and remember that the letter Hey reveals. So the Hey reveals what Yahweh has in his hand, and that is life. For as the Father possesses life in himself, so he gave also to the Son, which was nailed to the cross. The Vav is a nail, and the Vav also represents the man who was created on the sixth day. So he came as a man to die, being nailed to a cross, to possess life in himself. That last letter, Hey. So, for as the Father possesses life in himself, so he gave also to the Son to possess life in himself. And he has given him authority also to do judgment, because he is the son of Adam. And he gave that authority to humanity but he promised that one would come from Adam, from Noah, from Shem, from Abraham, from Yitzhak, from Jacob, from Yehuda to receive that, and also from Yosef to finish it first and last, Yehuda and Yosef. So, and he has given him authority also to do judgment. So we saw earlier that Yahushua said the Father judges no one. But now he's saying that the Father gave him the authority because he is the son of Adam. Remember that Yahushua, when he says the son of Adam, he's saying it in the third person because he refers to him as a man, but also to the coming of the last as the son of Adam, not the seed of a woman, meaning he won't come through a virgin. He would come through a regular relation between man and woman. So the son of Adam, the son of men. And he has given him authority also to do judgment because he is the son of Adam. And I say all of this because remember that in another verse, Yahushua says that he doesn't judge anyone. So that would be a contradiction. However, I repeat, through the union of his defense and the testimony, then judgment comes. And the one who comes to give testimony, the witness, like Moshe, happens to be the son of Adam. Verse 28. Do not marvel at this, because the hour is coming in which all those in the tombs shall hear his voice. I repeat, in the literal, when he would die and go down to Sheol, in the spiritual, when he would come through the Son of Man to speak to the world. And remember that Yahushua told the Pharisees that they were pretty much tombs filled with dead bones, right? They looked very nice outside. Their appearances were beautiful, but inside they were filled with death. So tombs not only refers to the literal aspect, but also the metaphorical, which is a person. Do not marvel at this, because the hour is coming in which all those in the tombs shall hear his voice and shall come forth. Those who have done good to the resurrection of life, and those who have practiced evil matters to a resurrection of judgment. So those who believe go from death to life without judgment. But those who do not believe, who have acted wickedly, they will resurrect as well, but for judgment. So that is important, because resurrection will be for all. When Yahushua brought resurrection to this reality, he did it not only to resurrect those who do good, but also those who do evil, because they will resurrect in order to go into condemnation forever. Then he says, of myself I am unable to do any matter. Of myself I am unable to do any matter. Once again, that shows Yahushua's humility. It's amazing to read this, him being the son of the Father who has the strength, well, in whom we can do all things, right? So imagine the love of the Father for the Son, that he gave him all power, all authority, and the love for us, that through Yahushua, he loves us like he loves Mashiach. So he gives us all things as well through Mashiach. Of myself, I am unable to do any matter. As I hear, I judge. As I hear, I judge. And my judgment is righteous. Another thing that some people may see as contradiction. The fact that Yahushua says, I don't judge anybody. And here he says that he judges. Remember that there is a difference between judging to condemn and judging to make a decision, right? We should judge everything that we do. We should judge every single action, thought, word that comes from us and that comes from others. We should judge in order to act correctly. But condemn, that's something that we shouldn't do. So when Yahushua said, I did not come to judge anybody, he's meaning that he came to defend. He didn't come to condemn. Right here, he's talking about the decisions, the words, the teachings, the decision of healing somebody and not healing the great multitude. Understood? So that needs judgment. Yahushua had to judge who was the one in there that needed healing? Or, well, they all needed healing, but who was the one who was supposed to get it? And that's why he healed the man that he healed, right? So, of myself, I am unable to do any matter. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is righteous, because I do not seek my own desire, but the desire of the Father who sent me. That is beautiful. That's why he was able to fulfill all commandments. That's why he completed the Torah. So he didn't come to do his own will, but the will of the Father. So not even the Son himself came to do his own will. But another way of seeing it is that his will is the will of the Father. He's a reflection of that. He's the manifestation of the perfect will of Yahweh. The last is the manifestation of the permissible will, and that's why he comes as the prodigal son. Of myself, I am unable to do any matter. As I hear, I judge, and my judgment is righteous, because I do not seek my own desire. The judges of this world, when they seek their own desire, they have wrong judgment. They accept bribes and all of that. But Yahushua said, I did not come to do my own desire. I came to do the desire of the Father who sent me. So whatever he tells me, I say. Whatever he tells me to do, I do. If I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true. This verse is very, very important. If I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true. So even though Yahushua is saying who he is, because he had to, and he is the truth, so he cannot lie about himself, those things were not going to be accepted because he was telling them himself, right? So, um, well, it's a lot to say here, because remember that eventually we will see in John 10 how Yahushua says, I am the door and the good shepherd. The good shepherd goes through the door. The thief comes through another way, right? So the thief doesn't come through the door. That is to say that he would come twice, as first and last, as the door and the good shepherd. And when he would come, Yahweh manifesting as the good shepherd, he would have to preach of the door, meaning the good shepherd going through the door in order to be the true good shepherd. But whoever manifests and says that he himself is, then he is not accepting or honoring the door. That is a thief who is trying to enter a different way. That is why he says this here. If I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true. That's why he had to come twice, because he first came as the Son to give a testimony of the Father, to testify of Yahweh. But now when the Son goes up to the right of the Father, then the Father comes down, as he said in Psalm 110, Yahweh said to my sovereign, sit at my right hand until I go and put your enemies as your footstool. So when Mashiach went up to the right hand of the Father comes down in the end times as the last to give testimony of the Son. So the Son gives testimony of the Father, and then the Father comes to give testimony of the Son, and that testimony will be valid. And then the first and the last become one, because Deuteronomy says that Yahweh is one. Isaiah says Yahweh is first and last. But Zechariah says that in that day, Yahweh will be one and his name one. Why? Because he separated in two manifestations, as the priest and the king, as the arm and the hand, as the sword and the bow, through Yahudah, through Yahusef, as the lamb and the lion, etc., etc. So, if I bear witness of myself, my witness is not true. There is another who bears witness of me. There is another that is interesting, because well, it depends. Let me see how it is written here. John 5:32. 5:32, there is another. It says here, Yesh Acheid Hameid, who gives testimony. So Acheid. Acheid is another. And Acheid, well, let me show it here. So Acheid, see, other. But if we add the Vav and the Nun, We have last. So by saying there is another, it is like saying the last is the other. Acher, acharon, right? So it's like saying there is the last, who is another, right? Now, remember that Yahushua came through Yahudah. That's why the way to praise Yahweh, it is through our belief in Yahushua and acting like him. That is the praise of Yahweh. That's why he came through Yahudah. The last comes through Yosef. Remember that Yosef would be this name right here. Then it was changed to Yahusef. Now, obviously, it is Yahweh, Yahu, Yahweh, and Seth comes from Asaph, to collect. He collected, as in gathering, as in the harvest. There is one who sows and one who harvests, first and last. So the last comes through Yahusef to collect, to harvest. But remember that this word also is to add. To add, when you collect things, when you gather, you keep adding whatever you're gathering, right? So when Rachel had Yosef, he called him that because he wanted Yahweh to add another son. Remember? So she wanted another son. Here we go. And she called his name Yosef and said, Yahweh shall add to me another son. That's why she called him Yosef, meaning he will add. Yahweh will add. Because you see Yosef here, and then because, like, I hope you're following what I'm selecting here. So Yosef saying, Leimor, Yosef, he will add Yahweh to me a son, Acher, other, the last. So the Acharon would be the Acher that would come through Yosef. Is that understood? So you see here the verb from which we get the name Yosef. Yahweh will add to me a son, Acher, a son, Acher, another son. So now Yahushua is saying there is Acher, right? There is another who needs to be added in the end times. There is another manifestation that has to come. And that is something that, as we know, is not taught in Christianity. So there is another who bears witness of me. So if he bears witness, he is a witness, right? And we see in Revelation 22 that Yahushua sends his messenger, that is Michael, to testify, meaning to be a witness, one of the two witnesses of Revelation 11, and that is the other, Acher, manifestation of Yahweh as the last, Acharon. So there is another who bears witness of me, and I know that the witness which he witnesses of me is true. Now, obviously, this the most common in literal interpretation refers to the Father. The Father gives testimony of Mashiach. Only Yahweh reveals who the Son is, and only the Son reveals who the Father is. But like I said, Yahweh is the first and the last, and he first would manifest as the Son and then as the Father, which is pretty much the order in which things go. A person first comes to the world as a son and then becomes a father when he has a wife. So Yahushua came as the son for the congregation to be formed, which would be the wife as he comes as the last. So there is another who bears witness of me, and I know that the witness which he witnesses of me is true. 33. You have sent to Yahweh, and he bore witness to the truth. This very important as well. Okay, so Yahweh, who happened to be Eliyahu, one of the manifestations of Eliyahu. Yוחנן means he favors. So Yahweh sent Yוחנן to prepare the way, but he was not the way. He came to show who the light is, but he was not the light. He was a torch. So you have sent to Yוחנן, we saw that in chapter 1, and he bore witness to the truth. So we see that Yוחנן, Eliyahu, is a witness as well. So the two witnesses of Revelation 11 are the other, Aharon, the last descendant of Joseph, and Eliyahu. So the witness like Moshe is that other one, and Eliyahu, who came before with the name Yahuchanan. So you have sent to Yohanan, and he bore witness to the truth. But I do not receive witness from men. So in a way, he's saying that testimony, and this is huge for several reasons, but pretty much saying that testimony was for them to know who the Messiah is. But Yahushua himself doesn't receive that testimony. That testimony was not for Yahushua, was for the people. When the last comes, because of the apostasy, the world has forgotten of Yahushua. So the testimony of the last is for Yahushua to be known in a different way than when Eliyahu came as Yahuhanan. In a way, also, we could see it as just like Moshe manifested to make the name of Yahweh known in the whole world during the first Exodus. Now the last, the witness like Moshe, manifests to make the name of Yahushua known in the whole world through the second Exodus. And remember that the priest, the high priest, which as we know, Yahushua became the high priest according to the order of Melchizedek, the high priest on Yom Kippur, he would sacrifice a male goat for the people. And then he would sacrifice an ox for himself and his family. So Yahushua was the male goat that was sacrificed for the people. When they allowed Barabbas to go away, that was the male goat for Azazel, and the sacrifice of Yahushua, the male goat for Yahweh of Yom Kippur. So now the last has to come to die for the high priest and the priests, meaning the 144,000. So in a way, like saying here, I do not receive witness from men, but now Mikael, a malach, will come to give witness of Mashiach, a witness which Yahushua accepts because it is what is left for everything to be fulfilled. And remember that Yahuhanan was the last man of the flesh. And then Yahushua came to begin the time of the spirit. That's why Yahushua is the last Adam, because he began everything in the spiritual sense, like Adam started it in the physical sense. And that's why Yahushua said that John the Baptist was the greatest of all who were born of women, but the smallest in the kingdom of Yahweh would be greater than him. So I do not receive witness from men, in a way like saying from flesh. But I say this in order that you might be saved. Right? So he was saying, like, I'm not testifying of myself, but I have to say this so that you may be saved. This needs to be said. But I do not receive witness from men, but I say this in order that you might be saved. He was the burning and shining lamp, and for a while you wished to rejoice in his light. So he's saying he's not the light, as we see in John 1, that John was not the light, but he revealed who the light is when the light of the world became flesh and came to us. So also the fact that he says that he was the burning and shining lamp shows, I repeat, that he's not the light, but he was a lamp through which the light would come. And that is exactly what Hillel was, who came to be known as Lucifer, he who bears the light, right? Because he, that angel, was given a light in the beginning of time. but he became a lamp. He's not the light, but the world started worshiping him as if he was the light. And one of the reasons why Lucifer is represented by the sun in this world, and that's why many religions worship the sun. So he was the burning and shining lamp. Like I said, before Mashiach came, the law was given through Malachim. One of them became the accuser. And sadly, that's the one people were following. That's why the Pharisees accused Mashiach of sinning when they didn't understand the Shabbat. And now Yahushua is talking about John as the burning and shining lamp. Because John, even though he in the spiritual was sent by Yahweh, so was Hillel, right? And that's why one of the reasons why John the Baptist said that he wasn't worthy of pretty much touching the sandals of Yahushua, right? The strap of the sandals of Mashiach, even. So he was the burning and shining lamp. Another thing that we can see here now in Bereshit 15, Genesis 15. It's an amazing chapter, very powerful. And he says, after Abraham made a sacrifice, it says, and it came to be when the sun went down, meaning at night, which represents the end times, because the last comes as a thief in the night. And it was dark, that see a smoking oven and a burning torch, passing between those pieces. So this right here that manifested in the time of Abraham was to show him the end times, how there will be the last week of Daniel separated in half and half, just like these animals that he sacrificed in this chapter were divided in halves. So just like he divided these animals in half, 3 and 3, and two birds that he didn't separate, representing the half a year. So 3.5 years make 7 years. In the half of those, the two witnesses will be killed. So we see here how at night he saw how there was a smoking oven and a burning torch, two things passing by in the middle of those sacrifices, meaning that in the middle of the last 7 years, the two witnesses will be killed. One is like a smoking oven, meaning one who is the consuming fire. Yahushua came as the water of life. The last comes as the consuming fire. And he comes next to Eliyahu, who is a burning torch. A burning torch like he was when he came the first time 2,000 years ago. And Yahushua said he was the burning and shining lamp. Others translated as a burning and shining torch. And for a while you wish to rejoice in his light. The same thing happened with humanity, who wished to rejoice in the light of Hillel, Lucifer, thinking he was the true mighty one, thinking he was the light, not knowing he was the lamp. But I have a greater witness than that of Yahweh. So Yahushua is greater than Hillel, no doubt about it. The revelation of Mashiach is greater than the revelation of the angels, than the doctrines of demons, than the false interpretations of the Torah. But I have a greater witness. And that's why when the two witnesses come, one of which happens to be Eliyahu, who came as Yehoshanan the first time, the last time, those two witnesses will accept Yahushua as Messiah. So they will be greater witnesses than whoever witnessed before Mashiach. But I have a greater witness, and obviously he's also referring to what he himself is testifying. The message of Yahushua is way, way greater than that of Eliyahu. But I have a greater witness than that of Yehoshanan. For the works that the Father gave me to accomplish, the works that I do bear witness of me, that the Father has sent me. For the works that the Father gave me to accomplish. So Yahweh gave certain job, certain works, miracles for Yahushua to accomplish, for people to believe in him as the manifestation of the Messiah. For the works that the Father gave me to accomplish, the works that I do bear witness of me, that the Father has sent me. Right? So even if they didn't believe in his word, even if they didn't believe who he says he is, they should believe in the works because no one had done any of the works that he did. So they should have believed because they were the type of people that say that seeing is believing. But even when they saw, they didn't believe. So that showed that spiritually they were blind and they have no excuse before the throne of Yahweh. And the Father who sent me, he bore witness of me. And the Father who sent me, just like when Yahushua asked the disciples who he is, and Keph, Peter said, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the Most High." And Yahushua told him, "That wasn't revealed to you through flesh and blood. That was revealed to you by my Father, because the Father gives witness of the Son. It is the Father who reveals who the Son is." And obviously, by the Father confirming the works that he did, meaning when Yahushua would ask the Father to do something and the Father would do it, a miracle, Yahweh was given witness of Yahushua as his son. And the Father who sent me, he bore witness of me. You have neither heard his voice at any time nor seen his form. That also is huge because in their belief, because of the wrong interpretation of the Torah that they had, they believed that Jacob had seen the Father, that Moshe had seen the Father, that others had seen the Father, Manoach and others. Yet Yahushua is telling them that none of them ever saw the Father. So that means that Moshe didn't speak to the Father himself. He spoke to an angel that represented the Father. And that angel fooled them into thinking that he was the Father. And that's why they didn't recognize the Son, because they were following a different Father and became children of his. And the Father who sent me, he bore witness of me. You have neither heard his voice at any time nor seen his form. So you have neither heard his voice, because remember that the voice comes after the word. The voice is the last. He comes at the end of time. So nobody had heard his true voice. They have heard angels. You have neither heard his voice. And that is interesting because that is the word speaking. That is Yahushua speaking. So they were hearing a voice. And even so, Yahushua is telling them that no one has heard the voice of the Father because Yahushua is the word. They were hearing the word in order to have faith, because faith comes through hearing and hearing the word, right? I hope that's understood. But now he's talking about the voice, which is the coming of the last. They were hearing a different voice. They were hearing the voice of Halel, not the voice of Yahweh, which is Mikael, the Malach, known as Michael. So, and the Father who sent me, he bore witness of me. That's interesting because Yahushua the Son sends the last who comes as the Father and gives witness of Mashiach. So the Father who sent me, he bore witness of me, as we see in the end, Revelation 11, Revelation 22. Interestingly enough, you have neither heard his voice at any time. So they heard a different voice and they thought it was the Father's. The voice is the last who comes at the end, nor seen his form. Moshe didn't see Elohim. They didn't see Yahweh. They saw an angel, nor seen his form. Now, let me see what words used here for form. 37, John 5:37. His voice you have not heard at any time, and you haven't seen at Marehu, his form, his the way he looks like. Marehu. All right. So, nor have seen his form. Remember what was said in Deuteronomy 18:15. Yahweh your Elohim shall raise up for you a prophet like me, meaning Moshe, a prophet like Moshe. That is the last. Many, mainly in Christianity, believe that Yahushua, or well, as they would say, Jesus, is the prophet like Moshe, but he many times rejected that title, yet accepted the title of Mashiach, right? He came as the Messiah, as the priest. The prophet, like Moshe, comes as king, as a prince to become king. So Yahweh your Elohim shall raise up for you a prophet like me from your midst, from your brothers. Listen to him. According to all you asked of Yahweh your Elohim in Horeb, in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear again the voice of Yahweh my Elohim. So according to what Yahushua just said, they were not hearing the true voice of Yahweh. They were hearing a voice through an angel, the angel that pretty much does the show, to show the strength, the power, and they were afraid. So they didn't want to hear that voice anymore. Let me not hear again the voice of Yahweh my Elohim, nor let me see this great fire anymore. So that great fire represented his form. That's why fire changes constantly, to show that Yahweh doesn't have a certain form. He is the invisible mighty one. But he manifested through a voice and through a fire. So the voice and the form, that is the last. The witness like Moshe, who is the voice of Yahweh and the consuming fire, right? But Yahushua is telling them that they were actually seeing an angel, and that was not Michael. But because if it was, then they would have said, Yahushua would have said that they heard the voice of. So going back, and the Father who sent me, he bore witness of me. You have neither heard his voice at any time nor seen his form. So see how he's saying this after he said that there is another who gives witness. And we just saw how that refers to the last, who happens to be the voice and the fire that they asked not to see in Deuteronomy. So, verse 38. And you do not have his word staying in you, right? So that's why they cannot hear the voice, because they don't even have the word. So if you don't have the word, you cannot hear the voice. So it's like saying that the people will not be able to see or realize who the good shepherd is, because they don't accept who the door is. They don't have a door to go through in order to see the good shepherd or realize who the voice is. So, and you do not have his word staying in you, because you do not believe him whom he sent. That is huge. So since they didn't believe in Yahushua, the word was not staying in them. So pretty much it would go through their ears, and then they would forget. They wouldn't understand. They wouldn't accept, because they didn't believe. But when you believe, the word remains within you, and the Ruach comes and teaches you everything that he said and reminds you what he. And you do not have his word staying in you, because you do not believe him whom he sent. Listen to this. This is powerful. You search the scriptures because you think you possess everlasting life in them. Because you think, meaning that is not how it is, but you think. Remember that the scriptures are the tree of knowledge, yet they saw it as the tree of life. It is the tree of knowledge because it teaches us what is good and what is bad. And Yahushua said, well, Yahweh said, Yahweh Elohim, the day that you eat of it, you shall die. And remember that the Torah that teaches us what is good and what is evil tells us also that there is no man who does good all the time and never sins. So every man has sinned. And the Torah says that if you sin once, then death, right? Death is the wages of sin. So by knowing good and evil, in that same knowledge, we realize that there is no way in this reality, in this flesh, to only do good. And therefore, if we just do one evil thing, one sin, we deserve death. And that's why the tree of knowledge brought death into the world. And that's why those who are under the law are under condemnation. And the law was given to show the transgression. So Yahushua came and was hanged on a tree, on a cross made of wood, to become the tree of life. Through our belief in him, we receive eternal life. So First, the tree of knowledge, then the tree of life. And that's why the witness like Moshe who wrote the Torah, is the tree of knowledge of he who is good. But he comes as the prodigal son, knowing also evil, good and evil. So Yahushua was telling them because they were confused. They thought that the scriptures were the tree of life. You search the scriptures because you think you possess everlasting life in them. And these are the ones that bear witness of me, the scriptures, right? So the tree of knowledge also gives us knowledge of the fact that we need the tree of life, right? So the tree of knowledge gives witness of the life, which is good. And remember, like I said, the other one, the witness, like Moshe, the voice, the fire, is the tree of knowledge. And what does he do? He gives testimony of Yahushua as the tree of life. You search the scriptures because you think you possess everlasting life in them. And these are the ones that bear witness of me, the scriptures, just like the two witnesses. The witness like Moshe to represent the Torah, and the witness Eliyahu to represent the prophets. So we have the scriptures, the two witnesses. Yahushua, the new covenant, right? So, verse 40, but you do not desire to come to me in order to possess life. But you do not desire to come to the tree of life. They claim to love the tree but hate the fruit, or love the fruit but hate the tree. And that's what they were doing with Mashiach. You search the scriptures because you think you possess everlasting life in them, and these are the ones that bear witness of me, but you do not desire to come to me in order to possess life. I do not receive esteem from men. That's why men were rejecting him. We needed to accept the Messiah in order to, we needed to accept he who Yahweh sent in order to be able to see and therefore give esteem to he who deserves the esteem. But Yahushua is pretty much saying that he doesn't need it, he doesn't want it, because we should ask and want the esteem of Yahweh, the honor of Yahweh. We should want to please Yahweh, not to please men, not to please society. And if by pleasing Yahweh we please men, well, that's wonderful, but we cannot please man before Yahweh, because that's what the world does. And that's why the world is as it. I do not receive esteem from men, but I know you, that you do not have the love of Yahweh in you. Imagine how they took it, right? When Yahushua told them that, which is true, because they were accusing, they were not showing any love. They didn't care about the man who was healed. They care about the fact that he was carrying a bed. So they were not interested in mercy. They were interested in accusation, in condemnation, judgment. That's why Yahushua has been talking about judgment this whole time. I do not receive esteem from men, but I know you, that you do not have the love of Yahweh in you. Remember that the fulfillment of the Torah is love. So if they don't have the love of Yahweh in them, that means that they haven't fulfilled the Torah at all, even though they believe they are the ones who fulfill it. They are the ones who know it. But if they don't have love, they cannot interpret the Torah correctly, because it is interpreted to the spirit of Yahweh, and Yahweh is love. It is to love Yahweh with all your heart, all your mind, and all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. That is the fulfillment of the whole law and the prophets. But if they did not have love, then that was like having nothing. And that's why also Paul explains in 1 Corinthians 13 that if you give your body to be killed, to be burned, if you give all your possessions to the poor, if you do whatever you may do for the ministry, if you don't do it out of love, if you don't do it because of love, then you're doing nothing. You were doing it just to receive the esteem of men, the honor of men. So I do not receive esteem from men, but I know you, that you do not have the love of Yahweh in you. I have come, and this is a huge verse again. I have come in my Father's name, and you do not receive me. If another comes in his own name, him you would receive. Right? So he's talking about the true and the false Messiah. The true Messiah has the name of the Father in his own name. The false Messiah doesn't have the name of the Father in the name. That is why it is his own name, right? That is why Yahweh sent Yahushua. So just so that I can show it here, although it won't translate it correctly, just so you guys know. So Yahuwah, sorry, Yahoo, there you go, Yahweh, and then right the first three letters and the letter Hey, but then we have the same first three letters and the Shin and the Ayin, Yahushua, right? So we see the name of the Father in the name of the Son. Now, many Christians, when you explain this to them, and well, just in case you remember that there are two ways of writing the name in the scriptures, they appear as this as well to understand that it is Yahushua. There, matter of fact, see how beautiful that they are. Oh, well, if I added that, it's over. So Yahushua is the true pronunciation. So we see that the name of the Father is in the name of the Son. Many times I have spoken to Christians and I have told them regarding this verse that Yahushua said, I come in the name of my Father. So the name is important, and the name of the Father should be in the name of the Son. Not only that, Yahushua himself said that someone would appear with his own name and he will be the one that everybody would receive. So the false Messiah won't use the name Yahushua because he has the name of the Father. The false Messiah will appear with a different name, which doesn't have the name of the Father, I repeat. So, for instance, the name Jesus doesn't have the name of the Father in it at all. So, if one appears with that name, most of the world will believe in him because that is the name that they have been worshiping. So, if one appears with his own name, him you will receive. Now, many Christians say over there, when I say that doesn't have anything to do with the name, which makes no sense because then why would he mention the name? But anyways, they say it is his character, his person, the fact that Yahushua was sent by the Father, so he came in his name, right? So that is their answer, which is an interpretation, and it is not a wrong interpretation, but it is lacking a lot of other interpretation. So Yahushua said, I come in my Father's name, Yahushua, and you do not receive me. So the Christians say that doesn't have to do with it, with the actual name, with the pronunciation of the name, that it has to do with the fact that he came for him, sent by, etc. If that was the case, then they would have a huge issue with another verse in scriptures. For instance, in Matthew 24, when Yahushua says that many will come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. So if that is the case, like they interpret this verse right here, that would mean that Yahushua, the Messiah, the truth, is the one sending the false messiahs and the false prophets to deceive. And that would be evil. That would be not good. So it makes no sense. And that is something that I see in Christianity a lot, that depending on the context, the way they interpret. So when it comes to this verse, to go against the name, they interpret it that it doesn't have to do anything with the name. But in that other verse, when it says, many will come in my name and will deceive many, they say, oh, that means that they will use his name. But he's not sending them, of course not. So you see how convenient they are to interpret one verse in one way and another in a different way. Now, just in case, to explain, when Yahushua says, many will come in my name, the word epi in Greek that is translated as in, if you look at the concordance, it says against. Just like when you put something on a table, that something, because of density, is going against the table, right? Because of gravity. So when it says many will come in my name, should have been translated many will come against my name. That's why many people are against his name, saying that I am the Messiah, meaning Christianity. They say that Yahushua is the Messiah, but they are against his name. Isn't that interesting? So many will come against my name. And let me just show right here. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. So if the interpretation of Christians that coming in someone's name doesn't have to do anything with his name, but actually that he's sending that person, then that means that Mashiach would be the one sending the deceivers. That makes no sense. But in this verse, they do actually interpret that that person, the deceiver, is coming using his name. However, we know that the false Messiah won't use the name Yahushua because Yahushua himself said it here. Another comes in his own name, him you would receive. So that would be a contradiction, huge contradiction. So the fact that it says many will come in my name, if we go to the concordance, you see that it has the word epi as in, but you look at the concordance and it says this word means upon, on, at, by, before, of, position, on, at, by, over, against. Against. So this can be interpreted or translated as many will come against my name, saying I am the Christ. So many would come against the name Yahushua, but claim that he is the Messiah. I hope that's understood. So this is a very important verse. And I hope it was understood because it is a very common interpretation when you try to tell a Christian regarding the importance of the name. So Yahushua himself is saying that the false Messiah will appear with a different name. He won't use the same name. So that will be a contradiction with many will come in my name. That's why epi should be translated against, as we just saw in the concordance. I have come in my Father's name, Yahweh, Yahushua, and you do not receive me. And like I show right here, you can see how those two words are pronounced. I mean, two words because I separated it here. Yahushua, right? Interestingly, Yahweh, Yahushua. Yahweh was the Yahushua. So I have come in my Father's name, Yahushua, and you do not receive me. If another comes, false Messiah, in his own name, for instance, Jesus, him you would receive. And that is what will happen. That's why it is written that if Yahweh doesn't shorten the times, even the chosen would be lost, would be deceived. Verse 44. How are you able to believe when you are receiving steam from one another? Right? So he just mentioned, Yahushua said, I do not receive steam from men. That is what this world does. And I am not of the world. And now when talking of those of the world, the Pharisee says, how are you able to believe when you are receiving steam from one another? And the steam that is from the only Elohim, you do not seek. They weren't trying to please Yahweh. They were actually trying to please society, men, please others instead of Yahweh, not the Messiah even. And the steam that is from the only mighty one, you do not seek. Remember that in Malachi 3:1, it says, that Yahweh would send his messenger to prepare the way, and then the sovereign whom you seek will come to his temple, whom you seek. But that is those who seek the steam of Yahweh. Those who seek the steam of men do not seek Mashiach. And the steam that is from the only mighty one, you do not seek. If they were to seek the steam of Yahweh, they would have recognized Yahushua. Verse 45. Do not think that I shall accuse you to the Father. Look at that, how he's mentioning accusing when they were accusing him. So they were under the accuser, and that's why they would accuse. But because the Son does what he sees the Father do. Mashiach came to bring mercy because he does what the Father does. Do not think that I shall accuse you to the Father. There is one who accuses you, Moshe, in whom you have set your expectation. It is interesting that he says there is one who accuses you, Moshe. He's referring to the law of Moshe that accuses humanity because of the sins of men. Also confirms that he was talking about the witness like Moshe coming at the end to give testimony, and this testimony would bring the accusation against those who rejected Mashiach, the Son. Obviously, like I have said this whole time, Halel is the accuser. The angel who accuses is Halel, Lucifer. And that is the one they were under because they interpreted the Torah of Moshe according to the letter, which make them remain under the authority of Halel, the accuser. Do not think that I shall accuse you to the Father. There is one who accuses you, Moshe. So that's why the witness like Moshe comes to give testimony against those who are against Mashiach. So they are accused, in whom you have set your expectation. So they set their expectation on Moshe, not knowing that that is the one who will accuse them. They expected the Torah to give them life, not knowing that the Torah was condemning them. For if you believed Moshe, you would have believed me, since he wrote about me. Huge, right? Because Moshe wrote the Torah, which is the tree of knowledge. So Moshe wrote about the coming of Mashiach. Moshe gave knowledge of the coming of Mashiach, who would give us life because he would become the tree of life. So Moshe here, I repeat, represents the last, the witness like Moshe. For if you believed Moshe, you would have believed me, since he wrote about me. So Moshe gave witness of Mashiach in the Torah. That's why the witness like Moshe comes to testify of Yahushua as Mashiach. For if you believed Moshe, you would have believed me. So if one believes the last, they should believe the first, because the last testifies of the first. For if you believed Moshe, you would have believed me, since he wrote about me. But if you do not believe his writings, how shall you believe my words? That is huge, because his writings were the Torah, the 5 books, the first 5 books. And they claim to love the Torah and follow the Torah, yet Yahushua is plainly saying, you don't believe in the Torah. They were not true believers, and they were stuck in the letter, in the flesh. But if you do not believe his writings, how shall you believe my words? Makes no sense, because those writings were inspired by the word of Yahweh. So if they don't believe the writings, even less will they believe the words of Mashiach. But if you do not believe his writings, how shall you believe my words? So it's amazing to see that the Pharisees didn't believe in the Torah truly, nor the Sadducees, nor any of the ones there. And even nowadays, if you do not believe his writings, and we see it clearly, even in Christianity, they don't actually believe the scriptures. If so, they would read it. They would read the scriptures. They would study the scriptures. They would want to learn more about the scriptures, but they don't want knowledge. And as Hosea 4:6 says, for lack of knowledge, my people are destroyed. However, Christians want grace. They want to be saved without having to do a thing like study. I'm speaking in general terms. Of course, there are some Christians who like to study, but sadly, they still reject the name. And therefore, whatever they study is not what the Spirit is teaching, is what men wrote to seek the esteem of men. That's why they go to theology lessons in university to get a title, because they want the esteem of men. They want other men to see the title and believe that they have knowledge of the scriptures when they were just taught by other men who wanted the esteem of men. So here ends the chapter